It's me, just the one and only Paul Friends, welcoming you to Star of the Universe on call. And tonight, actually, guess what? We've got Barry. Hey, Barry, how you doing?
Outstanding. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how long I can stay because I've got a flight tomorrow, but it's not too early. It's
hmm
actually late in the day. I'll probably sleep a little later. I'll probably sleep till 5 morning.
hmm that is fine. Yeah, things are getting a little warmer around here. Actually, that's one thing I had to do this past weekend and this past week. Had to install two air conditioners.
Oh my.
Yeah,
It's actually, I'm down in Atlanta and it's not that bad.
yeah. Today was
It's like in the 60s.
yeah. Today had a high of 89 degrees.
Yeah, it's warmer up there than down here. Go figure.
Yeah, that is weird. And it's supposed to stay like this, and it's supposed to get into like in the 90s next week.
Well, I'll be in town. Let's see, I think fly to Pittsburgh tomorrow, and then Saturday morning, my wife and I should drive out to York.
hmm
For Sunday, I fly back down to Atlanta.
I assume from Baltimore.
No, Harrisburg.
Okay.
Yeah.
I usually fly out of Baltimore, right?
Well, this job, they don't mind if I fly out of Harrisburg, and Harrisburg is so much easier.
Oh, I agree there. I agree there. That's where I picked up my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Though I still remember. I still remember the one time that she got a flight, came into Philadelphia. Yeah, it was Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and then had to wait for. So she got stuck there for like 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and I could have easily
That all.
gone. I think 2 or 3 hours, and I could have easily gone down, picked her up, and came back before by the time she got the flight actually got to Harrisburg.
Oh, I hear you there. I've been stuck in Philadelphia Airport overnight. That was a bad one. It was my wife was out of town, I think, or she wasn't getting back into town for a while, and they basically kept delaying and delaying and delaying. And around midnight, they said, "No, we're done. We'll fly in the morning." And it's like, oh man, it's like,
Yeah, but
and then it was a flight from.
I don't live that far from here. Whatever.
That was what it was. It's like, but you're like,
Yeah, the problem, the difficulty is getting your luggage. I'm sure at that point.
oh yeah, that was the problem. I tried to get my luggage and rent a car, but it was they I couldn't get the luggage out.
hmm Understood.
Well, yeah,
Anyhow, given that, as a particular topic that you wish to discuss,
okay.
because I have one, but I'm not sure you'll be much interested in it.
Oh,
I.e.,
which one is that?
it was a topic that I ended the
Miniatures.
no play by email.
Uh, I didn't. I haven't checked my personal email. Which one was it?
No, play by email,
Oh, oh, play by email.
as in asynchronous
Huh.
play of SFB.
Hmm.
I it's a topic that I'm interested in because I really like the idea of asynchronous play because I think it is there actually are games out there currently that do asynchronous play really well.
Hmm.
Jeez, I'm this is awful. I'm blanking at one of them. Frozen Cortex, I think, is one of them. Another
Mm-hmm.
XCOM. That's it. XCOM and XCOM 2.
Hmm.
They do it. They do it really well. They're definitely more graphical in nature, but you do things
Mm-hmm.
asynchronously. I.e., you take your pieces And then what you do with those pieces is that you go and um, move the pieces and then say, okay, I'm done with my orders for the kind of. Vassal doesn't work that well, Iggy. I've looked at it. There's certain things about SFB that doesn't quite handle the way it should, because the whole idea of secret and separate. But anyway, um, there was a little different discussion I was going to have, but that's why Vassal's not the VASL. I'm not sure what that is. If you could spell that out, if that's is that a game called VASL versus Vassal? I thought you were just using an abbreviation. Oh, virtual ASL. Yeah.
I
That would.
forget, what is the premise of XCOM? I've never played it.
Oh, the premise of XCOM is that these alien race have invaded the Earth, and then you have these different squads where you have these different attacks. You have kind of scenarios, kind of thing, where you try to complete your mission. Missions. That's more of a word to use. The missions using your squad, and depending upon how your squad does, if you lose a squad person or you succeed, in which case you'll get more kind of. I don't think it's bonus points, but you get rewarded for that, and then you can buy better. In some cases, you can buy better equipment or upgrade your soldiers, things like that. And it's really graphical in nature in that, like you tell it, okay, I want to move from this spot to over this spot, and I want to fire, in this direction, or and then after you complete your orders, you click, done, and it'll move those men and see how it all works out. Okay, when it comes to Frozen Cortex, yes, it's turn-based. As I said, it's asynchronous play. Turn-based asynchronous play. Sorry, asynchronous play is not necessarily. Well, actually, asynchronous play is turn-based. But also asynchronous play is a little different in that you both. Idea of asynchronous play is you both have submit your set of orders, what you're planning on doing for the turn, independently. So you're not waiting for your opponent to complete his orders to do your orders. And that's one of the things that play by email, does.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Oh yeah. And sound a little tired there. So
I am.
Yeah, so I really enjoy the idea of asynchronous play. That's why I did some beginning work on a Starfleet universe based game called SFU Ships, and the idea was to simplify even more down from FedCom and make it completely asynchronous play. And I got the beginning part of it done. There were certain things that, since I'm not really a game designer when it comes to like board games or anything like that, so I don't have the experience with it. But I had some ideas about how to do it. The difficulty was, in my mind, was handling weapons and damage, and not, and in some cases speed, because the idea was that your larger ships, like your dreadnoughts, they would be larger, but they'd be slower. Versus, you have a cruiser which is a little bit smaller, but a little more a little faster. And then you keep on going down. The smaller the ship, the faster the ship is.
Sounds like the Honorverse.
That's possible. Now,
That's the way it's set up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, max speed is identical, but for warships. But
right.
What changes acceleration? So the smaller ships can accelerate faster, but they don't have a higher max speed. So what ends up happening is, but if you have a higher acceleration, you can, if you've got enough lead, you can always stay away. And yeah, they can match your speed at some point, but you can still, even if they're coming at you, so that they have an overtake, you can thrust in a direction perpendicular to the direction of motion.
Right.
If you have enough room, you could get away.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Well, Newtonian physics is involved in that case. And
the Honorverse was all about that.
Oh yeah, and Lord knows that's something that Ken Burnside was really into. Newtonian physics and
he had a point there.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's really awesome, especially for those people who really like the idea of realism. When it comes to science fiction versus science fantasy.
Well, who knows? Who knows what a warp engine would do?
I agree, but in the case of what's Ken Burnside's the game he created?
Attack Vector or Squadron Strike.
Right, both those.
Actually, he created both of those.
Yeah, and in that case, I call them science fiction in that they're based on physics, based on what we know about those things. Now, I'm assuming that in the case of Squadron Strike or Attack Vector, when it comes to moving from system to system, there was one of those take a leap of faith moments, versus, in the tactile sense. Tactical sense is the word I'm looking for. Where a tactical sense, there are certain ways that Newtonian physics works, including, the whole idea, as we both know, the generation of heat from, when weapons fire, you have, based on the weapon, it can actually generate heat. And what's one thing that you had to do? You had to, your heat sinks would only absorb so much heat before you had to say, that's it, I'm done. You extended your heat sinks to radiate the heat, and at that point, you it's like throwing the white flag. I'm done. I concede.
Yeah. Right, because you just don't have the capability to absorb any more heat.
Oh yeah, and that's why. To me, that's more of science fiction versus science fantasy. But I agree that we don't know when it comes to, because here's one thing we're gonna go down. What the heck? We'll go down that road. When it comes to different universes, how they see the universe and how they see faster than light movement, travel occurring. Because there's multiple ways that you've seen them, from the simple ones, which are like Starfire. The whole idea is that you can go from point to point using these kind of warp gates kind of thing, and you can either create one, or I think there's also natural points too. Then there's, of course, Star Trek, where you create a warp bubble and you travel basically. You keep kind of generating the warp bubble, and the warp bubble makes you move. You know, which
Yes.
is interesting by itself. And then, of course, there's the Star
Well, and
Wars.
there's actually, yeah, an
Yeah.
actual fact that the Albuquerque warp drive was, which was actually developed by a Mexican physicist, and it's like, well, it's potentially possible that that
Hmm.
could actually work
Right. Oh,
in the
understood.
real world.
Oh, understood. Um, and, and I agree that we don't know about what is truly will work when it comes to moving faster than light. There's so many things when it comes to moving faster than light that creates interesting issues. And I mentioned them before.
Right.
The whole idea of observation of, let's say, a collapsing star. If you can move faster than light, that means you
Mm-hmm.
can observe that star multiple times. If you just because of light, the light itself from the star is only traveling as fast as the speed of light,
Right.
and therefore, if you can move faster than that, you can observe it one time, then fly out, you know, a light day from that star and observe
Yeah.
it again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things like that. And okay, getting back to different forms of travel, of faster light, and then of course you have Star Wars, the whole idea of that there is something called hyperspace
Right.
that you can travel in, which allows you to move faster than in normal space. You have a light drive which puts you into hyperspace, and then so you can you know you fly through hyperspace at very fast speeds, but you still have time that it requires you to take versus the whole idea of a warp, a kind of gate system, or was it Giants of Ganymede who the I had was the whole idea of wormholes
Mm-hmm.
as a way of traveling, you know, faster than light.
Well, yeah. Now, to tell you the truth, I think Star Wars picked up the idea from Asimov because Asimov was talking about hyperspace jumps
Mm-hmm.
in the Foundation series, which he published in the 1930s.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Huh? I don't think.
Or was it the 40s?
Yes.
Was it the 40s?
I thought it might be the. I'd have to double check on that one because I don't
Well,
think Asimov is that old.
uh, he was publishing in the 40s. The Foundation series came out in the 1940s.
Huh. Don't mind me. I'm checking that out myself just because I. Ah, you are correct, my dear friend.
Mm-hmm. So I
In
think Asimov was one who came up with the idea of hyperspace,
you know,
hyper
well, actually,
jump drives,
okay. Let me look
jump
at this.
drives.
Let me look see exactly. Okay, the first four stories were collected. Oh, okay. Oh, they were part of a short stories in Astounding magazine back in May of 1942. The
Mm-hmm.
books, the first book, Foundation, was not published until 1951.
Right, but the shorts it was yeah he published the stuff first in the Astounding Stories in the 40s.
Astounding magazine.
Yeah. which is
Yeah.
how you published back then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Understood. And what is it? Many years ago, I think it was when I was back in college. I got a book of short stories that had, I think they were Nebula Awards. I think it is.
Yep, the
That,
nebulas. Yep.
yeah, that they had a set of short stories. I mean, there were lots of short stories, and some of these were classical science fiction. I mean, classical science fiction.
Yeah.
And in this case, the one I'm thinking of was basically, uh, oh, basically this guy comes into the bar and is talking and so forth, and then you find out that this person has a third eye as he's walking out the door of the bar. And it's like, whoa.
It almost sounds like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But but it was considered science fiction because only an alien would have a third eye. So,
right.
Yeah, things like that. Those in my mind were classical science fiction. Chris Newsy, as one of the people who helped me out with Federation Commander ship definitions, said that was also a Twilight Zone episode, which is possible that they got the rights from the original author of the story. That, or they were.
If I remember
inspired.
correctly, the guy was from Venus, because he just killed the alien from Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he was the bartender was from Venus, and he had a third eye, and he was wearing a hat and covering it up.
And I apologize. Chris actually mentioned I saw it earlier and it didn't click about that, which was Dune. When it comes to Fast and Light, the whole idea that you have a way of a folding space, and to go from one point to another point in the universe. Now, it's actually that. If you've actually read the Dune series, it's actually quite interesting in my mind, that they were very, really paranoid about basically machines. You couldn't.
It was AI. They were
right. Computers. Period. And that's why they had mentats. Mentats actually were meant to be human computers. They were trained human computers.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
I read that series. Yeah.
And towards the end of the series, I'm just thinking about, there was I want to say empire, not quite empire, house or whatever. That basically they built machines. That's what they did, and replaced the previous way of using basically morphed people from all because they lived in spice, and using the spice they were actually able to warp space and time to do the traveling from one point to another point. And they actually created a machine that actually could do the same thing. Near the end of the series, at least near the end of when I last read the series, because I think there was some that were written in that series, which was
Herbert's death.
After Herbert's death, yeah.
Yeah.
I forget who wrote it. I think one of them was written by his son. I forget. But anyhow, that's going to be interesting, actually, when it comes to the Foundation series, is that, Apple TV.
Yeah, Apple, I saw that. Yeah, it's making it.
Yep. Yes. Chris, Chapter House Dune. I remember the cover of that book, and I did read that book.
Dune or Foundation.
I'm sorry,
Or both.
I sidetracked it because Chris mentioned Chapter House Dune. His son
Ah,
Brian Herbert wrote continuation novels with Kevin Anderson.
hmm.
Ah, yes, that's it.
So
Thank you, Chris. When it comes to
I
Dune, he's saying the Ixians played close to the edge with what was allowed, i.e., machines. Chris has read them all.
all I all I can say is I have the same prayer for Foundation that I did when I saw the first trailer for Lord of the Rings.
Hmm.
Please, God, don't let them fuck it up.
I understood.
And I was, yeah,
Well,
and that's one of the things from my childhood that it's like, oh, please don't screw this one up. And Peter Jackson, when it came to the Lord of the Rings, he did us proud. But then when it came to the Hobbit, boy, did he screw it up.
yeah, but even Lord of the Rings, there were actually there were certain tweaks that they did, and I'm pretty much
Yeah,
okay with. You know, you know,
Tom Bombadil they got rid of.
yeah, and also the Ents were that whole interaction was a little different. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
that
but
wasn't too bad though.
not too bad. Yeah, as I said, it was a little tweaks. Now, dang, that's awful. I can't remember the one that was by Sci-Fi Channel that got bought up by Amazon.
Oh, the one for Audible.
No, darn it, was, dang it, you had Earthers, you had um, uh, people from Mars.
That yeah. The Expanse.
The Expanse. Thank you. Dang, got it, man.
That is a great show.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And it's one of those shows that they tweaked, and they actually explicitly said this. And when I saw one of the interviews with the authors of the book that when
Hmm.
they rewrote it as a screenplay, in that they said, well,
Hmm.
in the book we introduced the characters in this way, but in a screenplay, in a TV series, we have to change the way things, how they interacted. So how the timeline is still pretty much kept, but some of the interactions, how some of the characters find out about each other and interact with each other changes because of
Okay.
it's a TV series versus a book.
Yeah.
So because that was one thing
Yeah. Very very often.
um, the one thing I really disliked about what they did to George R. R. Martin books, you know,
Oh, yeah. That they butchered that in the last
the
season.
the
Oh my
last one, I think
God.
everyone here's the one thing you really can't say they butchered the books in the last one because George R. R. Martin still hasn't written the last book, which
Well, now he
to
knows what not to
do.
write.
Yeah, which is here's here's what upsets me. What upsets me tremendously about that part. I really feel like, to the depths of my soul, that George R. R. Martin was waiting for the TV series to complete before he finished the book.
Uh,
That's the only reason why he did not publish that last book, because he wanted everything to be a surprise when it comes to TV series, and now also he knows that he needs to redo. Well, the biggest issue, from my understanding, since I didn't want after I watched the first season. Second season, I saw the beginning of
Yeah.
it, and I just threw it out the window because they
Mm.
completely ruined the timeline at that point, and it's like, okay, that's it. I'm gone. If they're not gonna follow faithfully
Right.
to the book when it comes to the timeline, forget it. You know, and that is when it comes to the last season. My understanding is that what people really were bothered by is that the characters changed. They didn't hold true to the way
Oh
that
yeah.
character was played. Well, how the interaction was from the beginning of that series.
I know.
And it's like,
It's
what are you
horrible.
doing? Because we all were expected a certain
I
way. Yeah,
know.
maybe there was going to be a surprise here and there, but they totally changed some of the characters. I was like, what?
Yeah. It was horrible what they did. And
That would
that's
be interesting, Chris. Chris is saying, that George R. R. Martin doesn't need to write anymore. That's the problem. And what they do, he's saying what they should do is pull in Tom Clancy and then someone else write them. So interesting idea. Actually, when it comes to the Expanse, I actually bought some of the midi novels,
the what novels?
mini novels. They have some smaller
Oh.
novels which are basically side. They go on these side stories. That
Oh, okay.
they're not part of the main characters. There's the other characters, but in the same universe. But they're not part of the main
Mm-hmm.
timeline. But they're set within that universe and within the timeline that happens. But they're not. But they don't
Gotcha.
interact with
So
the
it's
main
like
characters. You
a
know.
side. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is an excellent idea. You know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In the Honorverse, he has a couple of collaborators, and there's a whole bunch of side series that are not. They're in the main timeline, but they're different characters. So same sort of scenario.
Oh yeah. It is mentioned about Wheel of Time. But
Mm.
anyhow, to get back
Sanderson.
actually to the Starfleet universe,
Why?
because that's what this podcast is about, my dear friend.
Why?
Because it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
it is.
Now, getting back to play by email overall. Obviously, there's different kinds of play by email. I think that overall, doing SFB over by play by email is more difficult than I mentioned this before, which was I had a tweak for FedCom over play by email,
Mm-hmm.
which in my mind would work quite well. For if you want to do a play by email game without a moderator, and that is you have to remove some of the features of FedCom to a certain degree. And one of those is that the whole idea is that for each, okay, since there are 8 impulses, you can do this relatively quickly. And since there's only 4 subpulses, you can do this relatively quickly. The idea is that you no longer move and have breaks based on turns and so forth within the subpulses. You pre-plot those 4 subpulses. And then,
Hmm.
and you both, okay, this is, I'm gonna move here, I'm gonna move here, I'm gonna move here, and there is no conditional orders or anything like that, because it's you against your opponent. Obviously, the only thing that kind of system would require is something that I wanted to do a while back, which is it's a really basic tool, and I probably should implement it because I'm not gonna say it shouldn't be hard. It's relatively easy to implement. It's the hard part about that is because it works over email, is that it can be used for spamming and that kind of thing. So, but I think that's, you can work around that. And that is the tool is that you need a tool where you both can submit orders, and then one can submit theirs first, and then another person can submit theirs, and then after that, then they both get the orders traded at that point. So it's basically, it takes what is done with SFB Online with the impulse activity orders and implements that, but in a website where you would actually just send out emails.
Haven't we had similar discussions about this before?
It's possible. Well, I said I mentioned this idea, this simple tool many years ago, many years ago.
That's why I thought it sounded familiar.
Yeah, but that's one of those tools that requires, and I definitely have discussed this tweak of play by email for FedCom before, where it's possible using that tweak, in my mind. Using that tweak, you actually can have it with that tool, have it so you can have a moderatorless play by email game against another opponent. That's one thing you could not do with SFB, because SFB has too many impulses. Unless you were willing to basically draw it back to FedCom, i.e., you pre-plot everything for 4 impulses. All fire, all launching and everything like that. Now, obviously, that would have to be automated. It's not. It doesn't really need to be automated. The only thing you would have to automate would be die rolls, and I think there's already websites out there that can do that now. I.e., you can submit die roll. Like, I want this many die rolls, and they'll send you something, or something along those lines, where it can be used for playing over the internet. So it's a trusted source is the idea. Is that you say, oh, I rolled a 5 and a 6, so so it came up with a total of 11, and it was on a DAC. When you're rolling damage, it's like, oh, so I hit your torpedo. If you did that, if you said that in an email, would you actually believe it from your opponent?
Depends on who the person is.
Yeah, agree.
You want something to trust but verify.
Right. Exactly. Oh, okay. I gotta answer this one question. Chris said, why play by email when SFB Online exists? Now,
that's a valid question.
That's the point I was going to get around to when it comes to play by email. And that is this. When it comes to playing against an opponent, yes. When you have a live opponent, SFB Online is probably the better way of going. And especially if you have the time. Here is the critical thing, my friend. One, you have to have the people available to play at the same time that you're playing. Which is always the issue when it comes to live play. Yeah, in the case of a good example of this right now is we have Majid Farsi, call sign Devil. He is located in the UK, but he plays SFB Online very hard to do that too, because on the East Coast, if someone's on the East Coast, Eastern Eastern Daylight Time at the moment.
Five.
That's
What,
a 5 hour
5 hour
difference.
difference?
5 hour difference. There's a 4 hour difference because we change daylight saving time and their British summertime. Those change at different times.
Yeah.
Which we just gotta get rid of it. We gotta get rid of the whole concept of daylight saving time and summertime and all that kind of thing. But I digress. I'm not sure I'm playing 4X. I'm not sure what that is. But anyhow, yeah. So that limits the number of players you can possibly play against. Now, see, that's the beauty of play by email. Now, obviously, the awful part about play by email is, and I've seen this multiple. Oh, no kidding. Iggy was just mentioning that it's hard to play with guys in Australia. Actually, there is one. I think Jason Gray. He's in Australia, right? I got to double check his account because I know that we've had people in the past. There was I think it was Jason Gray, who actually one year he actually came to the United States to play at Origins from Australia. And the reason why what this guy does, Jason Gray is a professional, or at least he was, a professional poker player. So he earned his income by playing poker.
Yeah.
And Lord knows, to say the very least, he is competitive. And
right.
To say the very least, we had an issue with Jason Gray one year. I think that year, and that he's the reason why we actually had to come up with rules when it comes to playing tournaments. That is, there's certain things you cannot do in tournament play, i.e., you can't run into the center of the board and then Star Castle for no reason at all, other than to get the advantage on your opponent. The rules and that were updated require that you actually attack. You can't run in and be totally in defensive position at all times, because in SFB, unlike FedCom, you can really take advantage of that being stationary. In FedCom, you can't do that. Why? Because you're limited by the amount of shield reinforcement you can actually have based on the number of batters you've got. Versus SFB, if you generate 40 points of power and you're only using 10 just for weapons and so forth, you can put 30 towards reinforcement. You know, and this is the reason why they actually had to codify those rules. So the first turn, okay, it's okay. You might get a warning. You have to go 3 turns. If on the third turn you will be, if you did it for a third turn in a row, you would absolutely, the judge would come in and say you concede, game over. That was the rule.
Right.
Yes, plasma still kills. But you can also, wild weasel, depends upon how much plasma. It does not make it easy. And remember also, when it comes to tournaments, Iggy, with live tournaments, you've got a 3-hour total time. You must complete your game in 3 hours. At that point, if it's not completed, it will be adjudicated. This is not like SFB Online. SFB Online, you can actually have a really long game. There is no time limit on it, which actually produces a problem itself. in that since there is no time limit, and more to the point, you don't have continuous play. This is I mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again, which is it produces the issue with tournament play where you could play 3 turns, say okay, well, Steve, I gotta go do something else, and never get back to the game. At that point, what happens? Is it adjudicated? Is it possible to adjudicate it at all? Especially in the case of after a single turn, because depending upon the players involved, a single turn in SFB Online, the first turn, which should, in my mind, should be the fastest turn of any turn, because if you ever played play by email tournaments, the first turn, you could get the first turn done in half a week. If the people involved would actually be very responsive, the idea is you had 16 impulses, and then another 16 impulses, and invariably you can actually get it so that no one breaks. There's not a single break, so it never stops. Because that's one thing that you find out in play by email, and that is those little things that you would do in real life don't make a hill of beans. They make no difference whatsoever. They're tweaks that might make you feel better, but they don't change the outcome. With play by email, it forces you to play with broader strokes. I still remember to this day there was a person, I forget their name now, that they got within a certain bit of range of their opponent, and they only would submit one impulse at a time. And it's like, wait a minute, dude, you really need to submit more than a single impulse, because of invariably, unless there's something that you're looking for, you're not actually trying to predict what your opponent's doing. All you're doing is you're playing SFB in real time, in real life, where it's like no. The idea of play by email is that you think about what your opponent's going to do, and then you make your plans based on what you think your opponent's going to do. And if he does something different than you expect, then put a break point. It's like, okay, I don't expect him to turn towards me. If he does, break. So if you're falling behind him and he just keeps running, you're not doing anything. Okay, if he launches, all of a sudden he launches a drone. Stop. Okay, that I can understand. But tweaking through the impulses, and sometimes down the segment level, it's like, no. That's not what play by email was designed to do. Right. The idea is with play by email is to get through as many impulses as possible in an automated fashion, so that you can complete the game within a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
No, actually, Iggy, seeking weapons were not a bear. Seeking weapons were easy. Because, for the most part, you, as a player, you don't care where the seeking weapons go. If the seeking weapons launched at range 15, you do not care. You're not gonna look at every little hex that a seeking weapon moves to. What you're going to do is you're going to launch it. The only thing that you might affect things at all is that you might tell the moderator, okay, I want you to move the drone or move the seeking weapon so that it goes towards shield number 1 or towards shield number 4, i.e. follow versus leading movement. Now, when you get close, yeah. Oh, Iggy, I agree. When you get down to within range 5, that's when things get interesting. But still, when you get to range, let's say range 3, somewhere between range 3 and range 5, that you say, I want to break. I want to look to see where the seeking weapons are and what I'm going to be doing with them. And
Hey, Paul, I'm going to need to call it a night.
okay. Well,
Okay.
you have a good night.
See you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay. But at that point, when the taking weapons get that close, yeah, and here's the funny part. Here's the funny part about play by email tournament games. In that first turn, when people played it long enough, what the people would actually start doing is, don't break when seeking weapon gets to range 10. Now this is the first turn, so that's special. And you don't normally you would get a break when the seeking weapon launched. After you play it a while, play by email, but completely by that automated system, where you have a moderator and so forth, you realize it does not matter when they launched it. It's if a person launches a drone at range 20, is that going to change the way you move at all? Because even let's say that the person is a Zinni, or even okay, let's go worst case scenario here. Let's say it's a Win Ox box with 6 drones. If that one they launch speed 20 drones, 6 of them at range 20, are you going to care? No, you're not going to care. You're not going to care until you get range 10. This is the first turn. And so people would do that. They'd actually have it so that they set a break at range 10. If seeking weapons enter range 10, break. If you don't have it so that, and basically you should ignore launch weapons for breaks, because by default it was. Yeah, the tournament ships can carry 32 speed drones. Those are limited to Zinni or Klingon. Klingon can launch a maximum of 2 real drones, that are that fast, and Zinni maximum of 4. Now, that if you were concerned about, still, at range 20, okay, if you wait until range 10, that's 10 impulses. Are you going to modify your movement based on 4 fast drones? I mean, really, this is the stuff that you when you play enough, you realize how much. Yeah, no speed 40, no Savos in tournament play, no. Standard speed 32 plasma, and Lord knows if you launch plasma outside of range 10, go home. Just go home. Yeah. Oh, I understood, Iggy. But yeah, see that's the thing about play by email. And if you've played it enough, you realize some of the stuff just does not matter. So I think to me that is the great thing about play by email, in that it really helps you think about the game and think about what actually is important when it comes to movement, when it comes to actions and so forth, versus the current mechanism when it comes to playing online. Because when you play online, you worry about every little itty bitty little thing that happens. Or at least you are interrupted for every little bit of action that a person takes. And at that point, what do you have to do when they launch a drone? When they do something silly and they drop their shields or launch a shuttle, you then have to think about that and go, is that something I need to worry about? So there's a cognitive load at that moment in time. No matter what, no matter if you say, I can ignore it, you still have to think about it. Can I ignore it? So there's a cognitive load. Now, with play by email, after you play it for a while, I'm not saying that, obviously that's something you're gonna think about. You're gonna have your personal set of, okay, these are my personal set of breakpoints that I'll set, that I feel comfortable with using every single time that I play a game. And you do that. And the cognitive load is, in my mind, it's put up front, and then you don't think about it until you get the next turn. Now, that's one of those things about play by email. Why would you want to play by email when you have SFB online? And that is, as I mentioned, that you can have it so that you can play anyone anywhere in the whole world and not have to worry about being online at the same time. For example, as was pointed out by, I think, Iggy, it was about Jason Gray, who's in Australia playing someone in the United States, which is like a 13-hour difference. So either he plays in the morning while someone plays in the evening, or he plays in the evening and someone plays in the morning. Those kind of things happen, which makes things really interesting when it comes to that. So interesting. I will get back to the topic I want to get to, because again, the topic I wanted to truly discuss, I mentioned it late last week at the end of the podcast, and I'm not that's one I wanted to have as the main topic for tonight. That obviously that went out the window. We did talk about play by email, but we didn't talk about the aspect of play by email, which I think will cause it to be successful. And I'm not gonna go there at this moment in time. Chris, the topic was, can play by email be successful against a computer opponent? I.e., is there a would it better be played if it was completely an automated opponent? You against the computer. Exactly. I think it's an interesting topic, something to be discussed, because there's no moderator, there's no opponent. And you don't have, again, the big thing, you don't have to spend all the time just focusing on that one thing. And I will get back to that hopefully next week. I'll discuss the points, the good, the bad, the ugly. So with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.